The Vanishing Hospital. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep your lights on tonight, you'll need them. Hidden deep within the fog-wrapped mountains of South Korea's Gyeonggi province stood a building that the locals only spoke of in whispers. To hikers, it looked like nothing more than an abandoned medical facility swallowed by vines and silence. But to those who dared to enter, it was the Kunam Psychiatric Hospital, a place where light bent strangely, echoes never faded, and the walls themselves seemed to breathe. It began as a symbol of progress in the late 1980s, a hospital meant to heal the troubled minds of society. 3 stories of pale gray concrete, tall narrow windows, and a single iron gate that clanged shut like a prison door. Inside, the air smelled faintly of antiseptic and dust. During the day, doctors and nurses moved briskly through the halls, their shoes squeaking against polished floors. But after sunset, even they refused to walk alone. By 1996, something had gone terribly wrong. The closure came suddenly, no warning, no official explanation. Staff members arrived one morning to find the gates locked, equipment still inside, charts left open on desks, and half-eaten meals rotting in the cafeteria. Beds were still made, some with patient restraints still tied. The silence felt heavier than the walls themselves. For months, no one touched the building. Rumors began to ripple across the region. Some said the hospital was shut down because of a government inspection. Others whispered that patients had started dying one by one, without reason or record. And then came the number, 42. It started on early Korean internet message boards in the late 1990s, where anonymous users swapped horror tales for late-night thrill. One claimed their uncle had worked at Kunam during its final month. He had seen strange things: patients screaming in empty rooms, doctors recording data long after subjects had expired, and a director who stopped sleeping entirely. At first, it was dismissed as internet folklore. But as more details appeared, the story grew darker. Patients allegedly began dying at random, 1 week apart, then days apart, then hours. No cause. No explanation. The remaining patients grew restless, whispering of voices in the walls and something moving in the vents at night. The most terrifying rumor came from within the hospital staff themselves, that the director had been conducting off-the-record experiments, experimental drugs, electroshock procedures, surgical interventions meant to reset the mind. Some said the hospital was secretly funded to develop faster, cheaper methods of treating psychiatric illness. Others believed it was testing the limits of human consciousness itself. Whatever it was, it went horribly wrong. By early spring 1996, the staff had dwindled to a handful of exhausted doctors and nurses, caring for 42 remaining patients. According to the legend, the director had become obsessed with room 402, an intensive care room on the top floor that no one but he entered. Nurses reported strange lights flickering from behind its door, and once, the sound of someone screaming though the room was supposed to be empty. And then came the night no one would forget. One morning, a supply truck arrived and found the gates unlocked. The driver stepped inside and saw chaos: chairs overturned, papers scattered, blood smudged on the floor. Every bed was empty. When police finally entered, they found signs of mass suicide: sheets tied to pipes, bottles of medication spilled on the floors, and the bodies of 42 patients. The official report was never released. Some say the government sealed the files. Others believe there were no bodies at all, only an empty hospital with walls still whispering. The director vanished without a trace. Some claim he walked into the forest and was never seen again. Others insist he locked himself inside room 402, where his ghost still waits, pacing in the dark. As years passed, the mountain reclaimed Kunam. Ivy crawled up its walls, windows shattered, and moonlight poured through the roof like water. But the building wasn't silent anymore. Visitors who came out of curiosity claimed they heard dragging footsteps behind them, or a woman's voice calling from the upper floor. And when they turned around, there was never anyone there. Still, the legend lived. The 42 patients, the missing director, the sealed room. And tonight, as the wind howls through the mountain trees, we're going back to where it all began. To room 402. The return to Kunam. The night was cold enough to see your breath. The road up the mountain twisted endlessly, a serpent of cracked asphalt lit only by headlights and a waning moon. 3 college students sat inside a borrowed van, Miho, Jisoo, and Kyung. They weren't thrill-seekers or ghost hunters. They were content creators chasing clicks, trying to capture proof of the 42 for their new YouTube channel. Miho, the leader, smiled nervously as he checked the camera. "Remember," he said, "if we find room 402 we'll be legends." They laughed, but the laughter didn't last long. The forest grew denser, and the deeper they went, the more the GPS flickered. When they finally reached the rusted gates of Kunam Psychiatric Hospital, the van's engine sputtered and died. The headlights dimmed, then cut off completely. The air turned still, unnaturally so. "Batteries dead already?" Jisoo whispered. Kyung forced a grin. "Guess the ghosts don't like engines." They stepped out with flashlights and recording gear, the beam of each light slicing through the mist. The hospital loomed ahead, 3 stories tall, its windows like hollow eyes. The concrete facade was covered in mildew, and faded Korean characters still marked the main entrance. Kunam Psychiatric Facility. Inside, the silence was almost physical. Every step echoed. The smell was damp, old rain, mold, and something metallic beneath it all. On the first floor, old gurneys lay overturned. Papers littered the hallway. Prescriptions, medical charts, faded photographs of patients staring blankly into the lens. One photo fluttered under Miho's shoe. He picked it up. It showed a young woman in a hospital gown, smiling faintly. Scrawled beneath her photo in red ink, "Patient 17. Jisoo frowned. "There are only supposed to be 42, right? What happened to the rest?" Kyung laughed uneasily. "Maybe they checked out early." Their flashlights flickered. They moved deeper, past the nurse's station and into the treatment wing. On the walls, graffiti covered the cracked paint. "Don't look up. Get out. 402 equals death." A door creaked open on its own. The camera caught the sound of footsteps, faint, deliberate, coming from the upper floor. "Did you hear that?" Miho whispered. "Probably rats," Jisoo muttered, though her voice trembled. They climbed the stairs, each step groaning beneath them. On the second floor, the temperature dropped sharply. Their breath came out in white plumes. The air smelled different, sweet and rotten. The hall stretched endlessly, lined with rusted doors. "Which room is it?" Kyung asked, scanning the peeling numbers. 402, Miho said. "Top floor." But when they reached the third-floor landing, something was wrong. There were no numbers past 312. The corridor ended abruptly at a concrete wall, sealed off as if a section of the building had been buried. "That doesn't make sense," Miho said. "There's supposed to be a 4th level." Jisoo pointed to the wall. "Look." There, barely visible beneath the grime, were scratches forming letters. 402. The wall itself seemed newer. A different texture, smoother than the rest. As they ran their hands along it, their flashlights dimmed again. A deep humming filled the air, low and mechanical, though no power had run through the building in years. Then came the sound. A dragging noise. Like someone pulling a heavy object across the floor, from the other side of the wall. Jisoo froze. "Please tell me that's you." No one moved. The dragging stopped, replaced by a faint tapping, rhythmic like fingernails scratching the other side. Then a voice, muffled but unmistakable, whispered something that none of them understood. Miho stumbled backward, his camera still rolling. "Let's go. Now." But Kyung stepped closer. "Wait. What if it's—" The wall shook. Once. Then again harder. Cracks spidered through the plaster, dust raining from the ceiling. A scream tore through the hall, not from them, but from inside the wall. The sound was inhuman, layered, distorted, as if dozens of throats screamed in unison. They ran. down the stairs, through the halls, past the collapsed beds and shattered glass. As they reached the entrance, the door slammed shut on its own. For a moment, none of them could breathe. Then, slowly, it opened, creaking wide as if something unseen had given them permission to leave. They didn't stop until they reached the van. When Miho checked the footage later, most of it was distorted, static, noise, and blurred frames. But in one brief moment, as the camera turned toward the sealed wall, a pale figure appeared in the reflection of a broken window. 42 faces behind it. And in the background, a faint whisper. "We're still here." The final exorcism. When dawn broke over the mountains, Kunam Psychiatric Hospital stood in silence once again, cold, gray, and waiting. The 3 students never returned. Their footage went viral on Korean forums before being mysteriously taken down. Copies circulated for years in ghost hunting circles, each version grainier than the last, but one detail never changed: the faint whisper, "We're still here." By 2014, the legend of Kunam had reached its peak. Television crews, thrill seekers, and paranormal investigators turned the ruins into a pilgrimage site. One production company decided to film a live exorcism inside the hospital, a broadcast they claimed would end the legend once and for all. They brought with them a shaman known throughout South Korea for cleansing cursed spaces. Her name was Madame Yura, a small, elderly woman with silver hair, a crimson scarf, and eyes that seemed to see through time itself. The crew set up outside the front gate. Their breath clouded in the night air, even though it was late summer. "She'll go inside, perform the ceremony, and we'll record everything," the producer told his cameraman. "No edits. No trick. We show the world it's just an old building." At 10:42 p.m., the exact time chosen for symbolism, according to the director, Madame Yura stepped inside. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then her voice echoed from the hallway. "Stop." The producer frowned. "What's wrong?" Her hand trembled. "There are too many voices," she said softly. "They're trapped here, but not together. They're separated. Scattered." She took another step and froze completely. Her eyes widened, not with fear, but horror. "There are 42, she whispered. 42 souls. None of them have moved on." The entire crew fell silent. No one had told her that number. When she reached the stairwell, her body stiffened. She turned toward the upper floors, her voice shaking now. "They are bound to something, someone. The director. He did not leave." Static burst through the microphones. The lights flickered. Every camera glitched. Madame Yura screamed, a single, piercing cry that sent every crew member running from the building. When they turned back, she was at the entrance, clutching her crimson scarf to her chest. "It's not the dead you should fear," she told them. "It's the living thing that still remembers being human." She refused to ever return. The broadcast aired weeks later but was abruptly pulled after complaints of technical corruption. Yet those who watched the first airing swore they saw something behind her, a tall figure in a doctor's coat, face blurred, standing at the top of the stairs. In 2018, the government finally ordered the hospital demolished. Locals were tired of trespassers, lawsuits, and disappearances. Bulldozers arrived on May 28. By dusk, the first wall came down. But the demolition crews began to talk. They claimed that at night, their machines stalled for no reason, and the site lights flickered even when generators were off. One man swore he heard knocking beneath the rubble, like something buried was trying to escape. When the final section of concrete collapsed, the workers cheered, but the lead operator froze. Beneath the dust, he saw something impossible. A small, rusted metal door with the number 402 still visible through layers of grime. The foreman shouted for him to stop. But curiosity won. He pulled the latch. Inside was nothing but a hollow cavity, charred walls, scorched floor. Yet the air inside was freezing cold. His breath fogged instantly. A voice drifted from the darkness, soft and rhythmic, like a lullaby. He dropped his flashlight and ran. By morning, Kunam Psychiatric Hospital was gone. The ground was leveled. A new logistics warehouse rose in its place months later. Workers there say the building is perfectly safe. But security guards still quit without notice. Machines malfunction at exactly 4:02 a.m. each night. And sometimes, when the lights go out, employees swear they see figures moving along the old foundation line, slowly, aimlessly, like people still searching for a way out. To this day, no official record explains what really happened at Kunam. The government lists it as a facility closure due to water contamination regulations. But those who lived near the mountain know better. They still hear the whispers on quiet nights. Some say if you drive past the old site and turn off your headlights, you'll see faint shapes in the mist, patients in white gowns standing where the hospital once stood. Others claim that if you listen closely to the wind, you can still hear the final words of the director himself. I can't let them leave. The hospital may be gone, but the souls remain, bound by memory, by pain, by a door that was never truly sealed. And as long as the number 42 echoes through those mountains, the legend of Kunam Psychiatric Hospital will never die.